Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to my show, High Road to Humanity. In every episode, I tell you powerful true stories filled with great wisdom that you can use in your own life as you strive for a higher road to travel. My featured guests will have their own unique stories to tell that enlighten your mind and your soul. So kick back, relax, and learn the secret to success when you take the high road.
First touch, strong connection, it lays deep in your soul.
Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. And guess who's here? Kelly Sullivan Walden is here, and welcome back to High Road to Humanity, Kelly.
I'm so happy to be back.
I'm happy you're
in
back.
heaven. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm really glad you're here. She's so
I have to
gorgeous.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I just have to keep writing new books so you'll keep having me back.
Oh, yeah, I will.
Maybe Nancy will have me.
I saw her on TikTok, you guys. I was doing my angel readings and I'm scrolling through TikTok and they say you're not supposed to be on there. But now it's like there's so many people that follow me for my angel readings. I don't want to give it up. You know what I mean? And then I saw Kelly, which was like totally divine intervention. And she's got this new book, A Crisis is a Terrible Thing to Waste. The Art of Transforming the Tragic into Magic. It's very cool. I love the cover.
Thank you.
This is like so you. This is
no
so
Photoshop.
So if you guys are,
required.
if you guys are listening to the podcast, you're going to have to check out this book cover because it's really cool.
All that is real mud. In
Yeah,
my
she's
hair,
got a little mud
all
on
over
her.
my face, on my pretty white dress.
Was this your idea to do this?
It was. It came to me in a dream. It was what I saw was mud puddle. There had to be mud, and I wanted there to be the flashing lights of an ambulance. And I thought maybe I can get a fireman too. And I did get a fireman for what. And then as I was walking out the door, I'm like, my teapot. I've got to bring my teapot.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was on the fence between should I wear the
Yeah.
white dress or the pink one? And I'm
There's
so
your-
glad I wore the white one.
I'm glad you wore the white one too. It looks good. I really like it. Well, if you guys don't know, I turned my mic down. Hopefully I'm not too loud here. That Kelly Sullivan Walden is an international best-selling author of 10 books. Wow, I can't believe it. 10 books. An award-winning dream expert. She's an interfaith minister. Oh, I'm a minister too now. Oh, we're ministers together. I love this. I didn't
Yeah.
know you were a
Let's go marry
certified.
people.
Yeah, I know, right? A certified clinical hypnotherapist. She's a practitioner of religious science, an inspirational speaker, and a workshop facilitator. She's also known as Dr. Dream. Her unique approach to dream therapy has led her to become a trusted advisor, coach, and consultant. Okay, so she's enriched the lives of thousands of individuals across the globe, from Fortune 500 executives to celebrities, easy for me to say, to stay-at-home moms. Her career in dream therapy has led her to create a podcast. She has the Kelly Sullivan Walden Show on Mind, Body, Spirit FM, as well as she's found Dream Work Practitioner Training is an online program that she offers to people. She's got a really long bio. You guys can check her
You can
out.
stop right there.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. No, I'm just teasing.
Thank you.
No problem. So her website is kellysullivanwalden.com. I love it. You know, I saw the cover of the book and I'm like, what is this book going to be about? And I know how interesting you are. She's like a dream expert. And if you guys haven't seen any of the shows she's been on with me, you can go to the Binge TV networks and all the shows are there. And she is a dream expert. And so we've always had her on for her dream cards and her dream books. But then I saw this one. And I guess I want to ask you is, when did you begin to recognize that these events that were happening in your life were actually blessings, were actually magic? Because that's what this is.
Mm-hmm. Some of the stories took a while. I mean, I quote in the introduction that there was an article written years ago in Time magazine that said it takes 3 to 9 years, typically on average, to recover from a debilitating loss. And so often, most of us, myself included, without doing something radical, it would take years to be able to say, oh, that was the blessing, or maybe that's why that happened. And okay, maybe there is a divine plan after all. But I started to, as we're on a path of transformation and healing And we
Yeah.
don't want to linger in the sadness. Who's got 3 to 5 years to just like just be in the mud of despair? We could if we wanted to, but I started to, some of the stories took a little longer, some of the stories were a little quicker, but the moment I would ogle them, and in whatever way I did, and ogle is the method that I use throughout the book to show how I transform the tragic into magic. Um, I notice immediate relief. And sometimes I would have to ogle several times and journal like repetitively, but often after just ogling once, I would feel that like the pop of I mean, this is gross, but like the pop of the pimple.
Release.
Like
No, I get it. You're releasing that energy. You know what makes me think of it is the story. Well, let's start off with, actually,
okay, great.
I had this whole idea of what story I was going to ask her to do first, but let's do the Shake It Off story first,
Oh my God.
because this is a perfect example of what you're talking about. So I've picked out a few stories, guys, out of the book. And there's a lot of them. They're really good. So if you would start with that one, and this is about a monk, a Franciscan monk, and tell the story, Shake It Off.
Oh my God. It's so funny. I've been doing a ton of interviews and no one's asked me about this story yet. So this is the first time
Oh,
I
how
get to, and this is,
funny.
they're all my favorite stories, but this one is very, 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 very special to me, partly because I still have the scar and you can
Oh, where
see
the dog
some of
got you.
it right there.
I can't give
I
it
don't know.
away.
Here,
Yeah.
I'm gonna, oh, okay. All right. Oh, all right.
Oh,
Let me back.
it's a bite. It's an actual
It's
bite.
an indentation. Yeah. I mean,
Okay, I'm not going to give the story away, so you tell the story.
Okay.
All right, all
So,
right.
okay. So
And this is
I'm
from
in,
New Mexico. Let me back
it's,
up. I'm sorry. Each
yeah.
story in the book, I got to say this because this is really cool. And I checked this out. This was neat. So each story, she's like in Southern California, or she's in Northern California, or she's in New Mexico. So this is a New Mexico story. So you were in New
Yeah.
Mexico.
I
Okay.
was in New Mexico, the land of enchantment.
Yes.
And my husband and I lived there before. So we have a beautiful community of people there. And we were visiting our friend Ginny, and we used to live on her property in a yurt on a bed of quartz crystal. It was incredible. It was Garden of the Goddess is the name of it. You
Yeah.
can look that up. It's people, you can go stay there and do a
Hmm.
retreat there. It's amazing.
Hmm.
So we were going back to visit, and I was in the morning doing what I typically do. I go for a morning jog, and I was revisiting the trails I used to jog on when I lived there, and I was having one of those Sound of Music moments, like the hills are alive, the Sound of Music. Like it was just the most beautiful, crisp day, bright sun crackling through the rocks, and just the sounds of all the little critters starting to crawl, and it was just
Yeah.
magical.
Yeah.
I'm jogging, and all of a sudden I hear a sound, and I turn around, and it's this awful barking. It's like two Cujo dogs jumping up on a fence, like the hounds from hell. Ah, like a total attack mode. And then I notice they're behind a fence. So I'm like, oh, thank God.
Right.
And then I realize, oh no, one of them is trying to get out from underneath the fence. The fence didn't go all the way to the ground. So I'm jogging, and next thing I know, I have two bull mastiffs. And if you don't know what a bull mastiff is, they're two of the biggest dogs there are. They're super sized dogs. They're the kind that like junkyard dogs. Like they're scary. They're dogs that would scare away anybody.
Yeah.
Big, and they're both on me with like, I mean, they're both Cujos. If you didn't see the movie Cujo, don't watch it. It's horrible, but it's about rabid dogs. I don't know that they had rabies. I'm sure they didn't have rabies, but they were awful, and they were on me barking. And one of them takes a hold of my arm and
Right.
starts thrashing it back and forth. And I'm obviously I'm in trauma, I'm in shock, but I pop out of my body, and I see, and I get this sense that there's like this sort of voice that tells me you're gonna like you're gonna live, and these dogs are just protecting. So it was kind of like this little reassuring, like this is okay. You're gonna live. But meanwhile, back in my body, I'm like, I don't care. So I'm yelling and screaming and freaking out.
Hmm.
And So the owner of the dogs comes running out. Oh my God. And he literally calls off the dogs. He wrangles the dogs back in, and they're finally, he's got them and their tails between their legs, and they're like, oh, sorry, daddy. Like they move past the guy, and he yells out to me, are you okay? And I start to knee jerk respond by saying, yeah, like it's just
like a normal reaction to say.
The people pleaser in me would just, even if I'm covered in blood, I would say, yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. I'll be good. But before I could get the words out, another little thought bubble appeared above my head, and it happened so quickly. But this is what happened. It was this Franciscan monk that I had met a few years before in Arizona.
Okay.
And he at a workshop, and basically he had been the right hand monk of Mother Teresa. He had traveled throughout war-torn areas, dealt with people in extreme poverty, and his job was to teach people trauma release. And he would teach them, I mean, this is, I don't want to get too long in this story, but basically
No, go ahead.
he taught people to mimic what animals in the wild do when they get attacked. So imagine, even if it's just like, imagine two birds fighting over a piece of fish and they're squabbling with each other. The moment the fight is over, they float it into their own directions, and you'll see them literally shake, like do this tremor where they get all the adrenaline out of their system. And then next thing you know, they're peacefully sailing along as if nothing happened. So he teaches people to get lodged trauma out of the body, this method of literally shaking your body. And he said, if you can do this next time you're in actual trauma, you won't embed that trauma into your body and thus need 20 years of therapy to follow that. So even though it looks crazy, you look like you're just like a raving lunatic for about 20 seconds.
Right.
Better to have that 20 seconds of looking like a little bit of a wacko compared to 20 years of trauma and therapy. So literally his head popped in my head, and I'm kind of arguing with him like, but I don't want to look stupid. He's like, really? This guy's dog's just attacked you and you want to look good in front of him? So I literally went, you're right. So instead of saying, yeah, I'm fine, I just let myself feel what was there. And I literally started sobbing, and I let myself shake and convulse and just flail around for about, I don't know, 20, maybe 30 seconds, maybe less, but it was just like a
Yeah, get it out. Well, as you're saying this, there's two things that come up.
Yeah.
First of all, Taylor Swift has that song, Shake It Off.
Shake it off.
And as you're telling me this, I'm like, oh my God, this is why she did that, because she has in a bad relationship and she wanted to shake it off. But what she's shaking off and what you're shaking off is that negative energy.
Exactly. So literally I get all that out of my system, and the guy's really freaking out like, oh my God. And then I'm like, I'm okay. Like now I'm okay.
Now you're
So
okay.
then I literally jog back home, back to our place at Garden of the Goddess. My arm is bleeding.
Yeah. And didn't he come out and like give you like a wrap?
Actually,
or something?
He did. He wrapped.
Yeah.
He did. So I had a bandage, and I'm holding my arm up, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. So I'm back on the trail, and literally I feel fine.
Wow.
I actually felt light. I felt like I was in my body, but I didn't. It was, so I see Dana, and Dana, my husband, starts freaking out. And I'm like, I'm really okay, but we need to change our appointments today. Our friends we were going to have lunch with, Deborah and Matthew Mitchell, who I love. They ended up coming to ER with me to get a bunch of shots, rabies shots and all that stuff. And literally I ended up having the greatest day. And there was the icing on the cake is back home a couple months later, I'm walking down the trail by my house, and I crossed paths with a woman with two bull mastiffs off leash walking by me. And it wasn't, and I smile, I wave. It wasn't until after I got past her that I thought, oh, I didn't freak out.
Yeah.
I don't have PTSD. I didn't look at those dogs and assume they were going to attack me. So there's something to this shaking it off. So I ogled that, and I can break down the OGLE if you want, or maybe you can step in.
No, I mean, you can. I mean, well, I think we did by saying you have to shake it off and why. It's the energy of that
Right.
trauma that sticks to you. And you kind of said it in the book. And I thought this was so interesting because I'm so into energy and it makes such
Yes.
sense. And, you know, if you shake it off and it doesn't get into your muscle and your tissue, because that's what happens. And that's when
Yeah.
the dis-ease sets in because it gets in the energy, gets in the muscle and the tissues and that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's
Yeah, we
really
just like
interesting.
sphincter lock. We like hold it in. I'm fine. I'm fine because our ego, and thank God for our ego. Our ego isn't the enemy. Its job is to have us look good.
Right.
But excuse me, I'd rather look bad for a minute and then have 20 years of freedom and to be able to
Sure.
walk down a path and see dogs that
Yeah.
might have been gnarly, because sometimes it's when you think they're going to bite you that they actually somehow resonate with that and you do
Well,
get
yeah,
attacked.
sure.
But
That
I've,
energy.
knock on wood, I, because of that shake it off thing that I got to put into practice. It's one thing to practice it when it's out of time, like when I was in the workshop,
Mm-hmm.
we all practiced it based on past traumas, and that was
Okay.
fine. But to actually practice it in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
that was miraculous to me. And I feel like that is a tool worth sharing. That was a tool worth writing the whole book about. And your first question was, how long does it take you to get through these traumas? Well, some of them took years,
Yeah.
but that was the one that was out at ASAP.
That's interesting. I don't know why, but it's coming to my mind, and I'm just going to ask you, why didn't the guy have the fence all the way to the bottom?
I
Hadn't this
don't
happened to
know, but he
somebody
promised
else?
that he would build it. Exactly. Well,
I
honestly,
mean,
we were in a very remote area, and there's probably no, I mean, I was doing the jogging trail that I used to do when I lived there, but that had been years before. And since
right.
then, there had been some developments, but there's probably nobody likes to jog in New Mexico. I mean, that's not a, people
Yeah,
jog
they
everywhere
do.
in California, but not in this part of New Mexico. So they're like, oh, we're fine.
You're good. Well, the next story I'm going to ask you to tell is this really caught me because I love this story. This is a good one. Okay. And this took place, let's see if I even wrote this down. I'm going to look. So this is Southern California. She's in Southern California. You
There's a lot
can't,
of Southern California.
yeah. But this I can see happening. And it's just so funny. You can't plug in here. Tell this
Uh,
story because this is like, oh my gosh. I was
oh,
laughing.
oh my God. I love this one. Okay, so I am on deadline for my first dream book. I had The Strangest Dream, and it was my first book deal with a big publisher
Yeah.
and a big deadline that was ridiculous. It was like, how am I supposed to write this book, period, but much less in this time that, anyway. So I found that the only way I could really get my book done was to go to a coffee shop. At home, there was too many distractions. I would get too sleepy. I would make a snack.
Yeah. I start doing the
I-
laundry.
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I really need to clean out the fireplace. Yeah, it's really bugging me. Even though it's summertime, I need to clean
Mhm.
out that fireplace.
Mhm.
But, oh my God, my house was never so clean as when I was doing this deadline. Anyway, so I'm working away. I'm happy. I'm like churning out the pages at the coffee shop, going there every day like clockwork. And it's lovely. It was one of those, it was a brand name coffee shop that I won't mention, but it was, typical. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm kind of sitting in my normal spot. I've got my scone, I've got my coffee, plugging away, earbuds in, and the barista comes up and says, "Excuse me, ma'am." And I'm like, "Oh, hi, yeah, what?" And he's like breaking me out of my trance. He's like, "You can't plug your laptop in here." And I laugh at him. I'm like, that's like the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. You're in a
Aren't we in
coffee
a coffee
shop.
shop? Everybody
Yeah.
here has a laptop and they're plugged in. He said, "Yeah, but you can't, you can use your laptop, but you just can't plug in here." And I had an old laptop that had to be plugged in. There was
Mhm.
no battery power available. So I'm like, there's
Yeah.
no other place to go. And I said, this doesn't make any sense. Can I talk to your manager?" And he's like, "I am the manager." This little twerp with like green mohawk and piercings all over. So noticed myself getting so pissed off because not only did he wreck my train of thought, and that's going to cost me time, and every minute is precious when I'm on this
Right, right,
deadline, but it's
right.
so rude. And I also,
He's kicking you out.
he's kicking me out. And I tell him, I'm like wanting to say, dude, don't you know I'm the kind of person that's worked really hard to be the kind of person that nobody ever kicks out. I mean, people are always begging me to stay longer. You're like kicking me out. Like, what in am I in the twilight zone? So I was literally, it took every bit of willpower in me to not go postal on this
Yeah,
dude.
I'm
So
surprised you didn't. And
I mean,
honestly, it's
I mean,
hard. It's really hard not to just let him have it, isn't it? It's
I,
hard. It's harder. It's harder to be quiet and smile and say okay than it is to say something nasty. I just want
well, I
people to
gave him
know
a
that.
look. I
I
gave
give
him a
you
look. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is the last time you'll see me here. I gave him attitude for sure. Packed up my stuff very loudly,
oh
slammed the
my
door
God.
behind me like, huh, you'll be sorry. Huh. Get in my car, I'm driving home, and I'm thinking, this is insane. How is this possible? And then I always have these little thought bubbles. So Carolyn Mace pops up in my head. And I had heard Carolyn Mace say that when it's bizarre, it's the hand of God.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, this is bizarre. Maybe this is the hand of God, but come on. If it is, that sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. So I get home and I'm all pouty and like huffing and puffing, and I decide to check my mail on my way up, and I noticed that there are 5 brightly colored postcards. Like not one, not two, not three, but 5 brightly colored postcards. And I look at, and normally I would just throw it away if there had just
Yeah.
been one or two, but 5, like, what is this? And I read this beautiful postcard, and it says, the new coffee shop on the block, the address was like just around the corner from my house. Beautiful. Present this postcard and get your first coffee and pastry on us. I'm like, oh, I got chills. I'm like, oh, well, instead of going back home and pouting and making my husband's life miserable, maybe I'll just get back in my car and see if I can find this place and see what gives. So I
Right.
literally pull into the parking lot, and it was kind of like with the soundtrack of Chariots of Fire. Da, 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 da. I start walking in, and I don't know why, but the 2 owners that I would find out later were the owners, Randy and Gary, come walking out, and they're like, there she is. I'm like, what? They hug me. I'm like, what? It was like, wait, so they bring me in, and they're like, this is our brand new place. It just opened. I might have been their first customer. I don't know. But they give me a tour, and they say, this is the place. This is the best place to plug in your laptop. This is where the feng shui lady said all the best vortex is
Oh
right
my
here, and it's
God. Are
just
you
for
just
you.
dying? Are you just dying? Are you like,
I
seriously,
am
God, really?
I'm freaking out. They bring me the most delicious coffee with the most delicious scone. And they're like, what are you writing? And I tell them I'm writing a book about dreams. They're like, oh, we both love dreams. Oh my God, you'll have to do workshops here. So I started to do workshops there.
Oh
I,
my God.
I end up getting my book done, and they end up throwing me the book launch party at this beautiful place, chocolate fondue, I mean, like it was out of a movie, Technicolor. And I literally thought, it's like the universe was kicking me out of this kind of boring,
Yeah.
run of the mill, regular old coffee shop that I was
Yeah.
attached to,
Yeah.
versus this incredible place that was 1,000 times better, with so much love and so much support, so much nurturing, that was just around the corner, but I would have missed it. So
Right.
when we get kicked out of some place, like
It's for a
maybe
reason.
a window is opening somewhere else that might lead to a incredibly different place. So I got to plug in to a whole new possibility, and I'll never forget that. Every time there's anything that bumps up against that, I'm like, oh, remember
Wow.
Randy and Gary. Okay.
Did you ever tell them the story? Did you tell them?
No, because in the sequence of my life, I turned in the book, we had the party, and we ended up moving to New Mexico.
Oh
So
my
there's a
gosh.
timeline here. And then
Yeah.
by the time we came back, we moved back to Topanga. And when I finally went back looking for them, the place had shut down. So
Oh,
it
they
was
were
like, so it's
gone.
almost like, did it only exist for me
Oh,
during that
I
little,
love it.
they put that up just for me. I don't know.
Well, and I just want to talk about this for a second before we move on. I picked out a few stories and we got a couple more to tell, and I want to see if there's a favorite one that you want to say. But,
Mm,
what you're talking about is true. And I don't know, I'm just going to say this. I hate to always age myself, but as I've gotten older, I've started to pay attention, just like you're talking about in the book. And you do start to see the blessing in each thing that happens. You're just like, I can't believe this is happening. It's like me moving. I'll give this as an example.
yes.
I wanted to move and I'm like, I'm going to go to Florida or I'm going to go here.
Uh,
And I'm going to go there. And I'm looking at all these different places. And I put my house on the market and it just won't sell. And I'm like, well, what the heck? Why won't it sell? It's a beautiful house. It's priced well. Why is it not selling? And to make a long story short, the market's been really weird. Prices have been
mm,
jacked up, rental prices have been jacked up. But I was getting really nervous because I wanted it to sell before, the market really went down because I know things are changing. But long story short, I ended up in the place I am now, and there was nothing available. And I got here and I booked an Airbnb and I called the lady and she's like, oh, this girl's moving out of this house. Come and look and see if you like it. I decided I was going to rent, not buy yet, and to see if I like the area. It's the coolest house ever. It is
wow.
everything I would have ever wanted. If I would have tried to do this earlier, it wouldn't have been here. That's what I'm trying
Mm,
to say. It wouldn't have been
hmm.
here. Like it wasn't time. Like
Yeah,
it wasn't ready. And we get so frustrated. Like, why isn't it happening? Or
right.
why isn't this going the way? And it's all because it's just like the coffee shop. God wanted something better for you.
Exactly.
God
Five
wanted
times
something
better.
better, right, for me. And it's like, I can't even tell you, I'm not even going to go into it, but I just ended up at the coolest place ever. And I won't go on and on, but you start to realize, you start to say, oh, okay, now I see why I sat there and why did I drama? God knew better.
Exactly. But I think about this story when people will share with me stories about like, oh, why didn't he call? Or why
Right.
didn't I get that job? And I think
Because you
that
weren't supposed to.
because you're not supposed to plug in there. It's like
Yeah.
you're supposed to, well, plug into source. And often,
Right.
just using that metaphor, another Carolyn Mace thing, she talks about how human beings were addicted to things and we're addicted to giving our power away. In other words, from my perspective, we're addicted to plugging in our energy into external sources, whether it be a person, a circumstance, or even like a vision of it, like where we're going to live. When I live there, it's going to be so blah blah blah. And so we plug in our life force to this external place,
Yeah.
and then we wonder why we feel drained because we've plugged into something external. And it doesn't mean we can't have dreams or visions or desires. Of course, I'm a big dreamer. I'm Dr. Dream, for God's sakes.
Hmm.
But but I'm constantly having to unplug from the
Hmm.
external source. Even being on this book launch, on this virtual book tour, and a little bit
Hmm.
of there's expectations and there's so many good things happening. But if I plug in and have like it has to be like this and it has to go down this
Hmm.
road, then I will be, even in the midst of great abundance and great joy and great things happening, I could make myself miserable by plugging in to anything external. So it's my personal practice to unplug from the external sources and plug into the main source, to the
Yes.
motherboard that
Yes.
doesn't ever do me wrong,
God
that's
bless.
always available, and
Yes.
then see where I'm led to go and trust that it might be strange. If it's bizarre, it's probably the hand of God. In fact, I
I
would
love
say
it.
it is the hand of God.
I love it.
So go with it.
I love it. It's true. It's true. And as you're talking, and we got a couple more stories I want to talk about, but I just want to
Yeah.
say it's not easy to let go and let the universe handle stuff for you.
No.
I'm totally at that place where I'm like, I'm such a control freak. I think you are too. When you're a type A personality, you're a control freak and you just want to control everything. And one of the biggest lessons, actually, I'm in it right now, is just
Oh,
oh yeah, it's just letting go. Well, it's because, I learned that from the house. That's what it taught me. It taught me to let go and let God. Everybody says
Mm.
it, everybody hears it, but you don't do it. And then it was like, oh, because when you let go, just like you said, then the universe provides way more than you could have ever imagined. But if you're like beelined, onto this
It
one
must
thing,
be right.
yeah, it doesn't work.
It,
Okay,
yeah, it's amazing. I
it's
mean, we
cool.
we like to be smart. We like to think we're in control. I like to think I'm smart. I like to think I'm in control. But it's just an amazing thing to just say, okay, God or universe, you drive, I'll be the co-pilot. Or what I like better is even you lead the dance, and my job is to become the best dance partner I can be.
There
So
you
I'm
go.
still participating, I'm still active. A good dance partner isn't a limp noodle that's just like, it's like there's so yeah, that's the right relationship with the universe.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so the next story I was hoping you would share with us. This is about clarity. This happened in
Oh.
Southern California. This young lady's name is Claire,
Hmm.
and um, I'll just let you tell the story.
So the long story short about Claire is she came to me because her aunt was my client for spiritual counseling and dream work and things like that. And Claire was her niece, and she was always talking about this amazing niece that she had. And I thought everybody thinks their niece is cool, whatever. I didn't
Yeah.
think that. Wah 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 wah. But one day she said, I'm giving Claire a session with you because she's been having this series of incredible dreams. And so Claire comes to my house, and I live in the canyon. I live up a flight of 50 stairs. And had I realized, had I really been paying attention, she had cystic fibrosis since she was a baby. She was given like a week to live at birth, and it was a miracle that she even made it that far. So every few months they would say she's got a few more months to live, and so she's
Wow.
been more than half her life was spent in the hospital. She's had so many surgeries, and so I would have never, I mean, this poor little 15-year-old girl is schlepping an oxygen tank up my 50 steps. I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing?
I
Ah,
know.
what have I done? But she bounds into my house with so much joy. And she's like, oh my God, I have to live here with you. This is amazing. I love tree houses. And she was just like any other 15-year-old girl with just so much joy. So much. She reminded me of Angelina Jolie meets Anne Hathaway. Like a princess, like just so beautiful and so full
Aw.
of life and teeny tiny teeny and with this like just intelligence. Anyway, so we go up even higher up on my deck overlooking the mountains, and anyway, she tells me about this series of dreams that she's had. And
Yes, talk
the
about
basic
this.
idea is in her dream, she she finds this like Jack and the Beanstalk, kind of like a beanstalk, and she climbs up it, and she gets up to what I would call heaven, but she calls it, what did she call it? She called it um the cosmos. She called it the
Okay,
cosmos.
yes,
And
yes.
she and as soon as she gets up there, she drops her oxygen tank because she doesn't need it. And she starts doing cartwheels and backflips, things that she hasn't ever been able to do because she's always been strapped to an oxygen tank. And she said that all of a sudden she's free. And while she's up there, it's so beautiful. It's like cotton candy clouds and all these cool people. And she's like, it is the most amazing place. Oh my God. I want everybody to come here. It's so cool. And then she starts getting all these downloads about the meaning of life and the answers to every question. In fact, she asks, well, why do I have this disease? And she gets this
Right.
immediate answer because she had always made up the story that it was something, she had been bad. She was bad. And there was something wrong with her. And this disease was like an emanation of like what was wrong with her, what was bad. But what the answer she got was, because you've lived such a good life and because you've had such good karma, you get to have a short life in this time. You don't have to grow old like so many other people do. You get to come in and have a great time and then go out. And so she felt like that changed her. And then she
Yeah.
was given this literally like an invitation that said, you have been chosen to be a bridge angel. And she starts freaking out like, oh my God, that's so cool. oh wait, what's a bridge angel? And she's given this. So next thing she knows, she's in her dream, but she's at the bedside of a woman who's dying, an old lady who's dying, and
Mhm.
her family's around and they're weeping. And Claire, the family can't see her, but the old lady can. And she grabs the hand of the old lady and says, "You gotta come with me. I'm gonna show you. You are gonna love it." And the lady's like, "No, no, 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 no. I want to be here with my family. I can't leave them. I can't leave them." She goes, "Trust me, they're gonna be fine. And you gotta see this place." So she knows she has to be enticing. And
Right.
finally the lady says, "Okay, well, I'll come check it out." So she walks hand in hand with her and she leads her to the cosmos. And the woman goes, oh my God. And she runs back and gives Claire a big hug and thanks her and thanks her. And then she moves on into the light. And then she does this over and over with all these people that night. And then she says, every time she sleeps, she is a bridge angel. She's sitting at the bedside of somebody who's dying.
Yeah.
And she does the same thing, like, "Come with me. Oh my God, you got to see this place." And they fight with her, but she eventually entices them and they go, except for one guy. She says one guy absolutely wouldn't go with her. And she found out later that it was the big faux pas of her career as a bridge angel because he got lost and nobody knew where to find him. So
Oh,
she realized that she had to up her game and not let anybody go because people are always attached. And she had to like get them to go see this amazing place. So I said, "Okay, I'm not going to interpret this dream. I don't think this dream needs any interpretation.
right.
This is just
Right.
a miracle." And
Yeah.
so, like, this is kind of, maybe this is literally what you're doing
Well,
when,
she's
and
opening the door to another world for people, is what she's doing.
like yeah, literally a bridge angel. And will you be
Yeah.
mine when it's my time to go? Can I sign up? Can I have you? And she's like, "Yes, for sure." I'm like, "Okay, promise, promise. If I go after you, whatever." Anyway, so she would draw pictures. She was a really beautiful artist and she
Oh,
drew a lot of
wow.
pictures and paintings of what it looked like up there. And so she would show her little sister, Ellie, "This is where I'll be when you need me. Just think about me." And so it gave her family a little bit
Oh,
of comfort that Claire was developing this relationship to the afterlife and that she would be there. I mean, so there was strange comfort in these dreams. So she called me her spiritual coach and it was an honor. She ended up becoming this great YouTuber. She's got a YouTube channel with, I don't know, millions of views. And YouTube did a documentary about her
oh my
called
gosh.
Clarity. And there was a movie called 5 Feet Apart that was inspired by her. Um, that isn't exactly her story, but she was the consultant on that movie. The main character
I'm
is
writing it
based on
down.
Claire. 5 Feet
Yeah.
Apart. It was a huge, huge successful movie
Wow.
directed by
Wow.
Justin Baldoni. Anyway, so cut to a few years ago, right before COVID. Or was it right as COVID? I think it was right before COVID. She her lungs were getting weaker and weaker, and she went in for a transplant, which people wanted her to do before, but there's so many instances where the transplant isn't a good idea because the body rejects it.
Right. Now, how old was she? When she came to see
At
you, she
this
was
point, she
like,
was 15,
okay.
and at the point where she eventually passed, she was 22,
Oh,
21 or
wow.
22. So
So she
she
lived a long
way
time.
Yes, and she
Wow.
got to travel. She did 2 TEDx talks. She got paid to speak at these big corporations. They would hire her to be on the stage. Became a motivational speaker. Like she got to live so many dreams and
Wow.
really her message. I mean, she'd walk her little oxygen tank onto the stage and everyone would just be like, oh, and she'd say, "Breathe." And she was so funny about it. Ellen DeGeneres had her on the show and
Oh
Dr.
my
Oz.
gosh.
Because she was so inspiring. One of my favorite Claire YouTube videos is the top 10 things the top 10 things I learned from being in the hospital. And it's basically all these
Oh, yeah. I
sneaky
read
tricks. Like if
this.
you're in the hospital, you gotta like these are all the things you can do to make yourself like dim the lights, bring in your own lights, bring in your own carpet. What's up with these hard floors? Like she would like decorate would bring in plants, tapestries, mood lighting, music. She was, and there's like a whole wing of the, I think it's the Long Beach Children's Hospital that is
Wow.
dedicated to her and the foundation. So I give a percentage of my proceeds of the book to the Claire's Place Foundation that raises money and tools and awareness for families that are dealing with people that have CF, cystic fibrosis.
Mhm.
So it's
That's a
I'm still
wonderful
connected to her.
story. That is a phenomenal story. And it's just wonderful to hear because we do have a wonderful place to go. And what we do
Yeah.
down here really matters, you guys. What we do matters. And I just think that's beautiful. And, weren't you lucky to meet her and spend time with
Oh,
her?
are you kidding?
I
I
just think that's really cool,
Some
actually.
people know who she is. I mean, she was a celebrity magnet. There was
Oh, how
so many people, and
funny.
they're like, "You knew Claire?"
Oh my gosh.
Everybody. Oh my God, Ricky Lake. I mean, there's just like just a ton of celebrities that are like Claire fans because she's so inspiring.
That's
Still is.
interesting. That's interesting. Well, gosh, we've been on for a while, but we have time for one more story. And I wanted you to talk about, unless there's one that you want to talk about, is there one that you want to tell?
Well, let me just give a little context. I'll back up and see. But
Yeah, why
the
don't
the
you?
book the
Yeah.
book is really, it's a series of my most unfortunate incidents, situations that happened to me that were what I would consider, I had put in my shame closet, things that were, or just the tragic closet where it's like, I want to be happy. I want to have a good life. So I just don't want to look at these things. So I noticed that my closet was getting rather full and bulging at the corners. And I decided to unpack all of these stories that felt so heavy and dark to me and unravel them and pull the gold out of them using my OGLE method. And OGLE stands for giving yourself permission to vent about what's offensive about what happened, and then what could be good or what might be good about the
Mm-hmm.
situation. And then the
Mm-hmm.
L is for looking glass. How is this an aspect of myself? And then the E is for elevate. How will I up my game? So that's, I do that with each story. So it's not just stories about me, but it's also a formula that people can use um, to better themselves. So maybe we will talk about that. I don't know. Which one do you want? We could do the
Well,
whale if you
okay,
want to
yeah,
do.
there's one more story I wanted to talk about. And yeah, it's somebody who was really close to you. And it's from Northern California,
Mhm.
Gypsy.
Yeah.
She speaks well. Tell this
Yeah.
story and then we'll get out of here.
Sure. So the nutshell of the story is Gypsy was my best friend's sister for 20 plus, maybe almost 30 years. Oh my God. Yeah,
Yeah.
30 years, over 30 years.
Wow.
And in the story, I tell kind of our origin story, which is pretty intense. She had lost a 2-year-old daughter, and I met her just a couple days after her daughter died. So we bonded
Mhm.
so deeply, like this, one of those bonds that you have with people that's like, I'll be your forever person. Like
Mhm.
no matter what, we're bonded, we're forged together. And so we
Hey, you
had
met her in 93. Well,
You
no,
know,
I think that's cool. Can I say where you met her? Is that okay?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you met her in an AA meeting.
Met in an AA meeting. Yeah. I was newly on my spiritual path and I was in AA for 8 years. Starting then, I was brand new. I was probably just a few, I don't know, maybe a few days
Well, this is a
sober.
cool part of the story, to be honest with you.
Okay, okay, that's cool. Then I'll so
Tell
this
it.
the sponsor that I had at the time, part of her, she was one of those really, if anybody is familiar with 12 steps and with AA, there can be some salty um sponsors that are just like, do this,
Oh my
just do
gosh.
it. I don't want to hear anything. She was one of those, and she had a lot of sponsees, and everybody acknowledged that their sobriety came from being bullied by this person. So I was like, I'll sign up for her. I'm used to bullies. I'll let that. So she was like, you sit in the front row,
Oh my
you, you
gosh.
you write out your phone number, your name and phone number on 10 slips of paper. You give it to 10 other women that have less time than you. For me, I was only like a week, maybe 2 weeks in. So I'm like, there's not going to be anybody. So look for any newcomers, give them your phone number, be of service, pick up the cigarette butts, volunteer. And I'm like, oh, just a humble little puppy because I had been just, that's a whole other story what led to
Right,
this.
right. But I got you.
So I'm sitting there, hadn't given any phone numbers out to anybody. I was used to in my former life giving those phone numbers to guys. But in this situation, it was like only the women, none of the guys. I'm like, what if they're cute? No guys.
Oh my gosh. This is a great story. Okay.
So they have a moment in the meeting where they ask if there's anybody here for the first time, and they stand up, and I turned around and there was this woman sitting behind me, and just had, I mean, it's interesting. Her eyes are like the color of your eyes, Nancy. Just
Oh,
those
wow.
like ocean blue, big saucer eyes. And it's like I could swim in those eyes. They were so big and they were so sad. And
Oh,
her then husband stood up behind me, and I handed her my phone number. And we talked after the meeting, and she told me why she was there. Her daughter had just died, and she had never been
oh.
a drinker before, but she hadn't been able to stop drinking. She'd been just trying to ease her pain with the bottle. And so
And it was sudden infant death syndrome
Mhm,
that
mhm.
she had SIDS.
Yeah, it was just the most
Yeah.
awful thing.
Which you
So
couldn't, yeah.
yeah, she and her husband were both just completely demolished. And so she ended up calling me the next day and asking me if I was going to go to a meeting. I said, yeah. So we ended up just going to meetings with each other, and I would pick her up. She would pick me up.
That's
And
cool.
after the meetings, we would drive around in her blue Camaro
Oh
that
my
looked like
gosh.
the Dolphin Mobile. And we would play, and she was a musician. She was a singer, songwriter. And the only thing that would bring her out of her depression was music. So she
Mm.
would play music, and I'm not much of a singer, but she thought I was okay. And
Yeah, because you
we
guys
started
you
we
start
started singing
singing.
we started singing together. We started writing songs together, and
Yeah.
literally it was like we both together catapulted out of this heavy depressive state. It was like creativity was the medicine, and our friendship. We would go to Marianne Williamson meetings. We would go to Agape. We were just sandwiched in 12-step recovery, Agape, Marianne, music, and we were like getting good. Like this, so this was the foundation of our relationship. There was a point where I was like, okay, I'm really not good at this. So she kept going. She kept performing, and she wrote a
But you
bunch of.
performed, I have to say, you guys
Oh yeah,
sang
we
before
did.
Marianne Williamson
Yeah, we
spoke one
did.
time. I think
Yeah,
this is so cool.
we did.
I
That was.
mean, that's
Yeah,
great. I mean, what
yeah,
a cool thing to say.
yeah. That was that. She was amazing. Anyway, there was so her she had two more daughters, has two more daughters that
Yeah.
became my goddaughters,
Oh, wow.
and they're beautiful and they look just like her. In fact, one of her daughters just dyed her hair black, so she looks just like Gypsy. And so Gypsy was a serial monogamist. She had been married 5 times. So her fifth marriage was beautiful. And let's see, the long story short is she started to get sick.
Mhm.
And so it turned out she had cancer of the tongue, and she liked to smoke. And
Mm.
we never exactly said that that was why, but she smoked a lot. And it was right after, so she had the wedding of her dreams, and her cancer, just she was doing every single thing a person could do, but nothing was working. And finally they were going to have to just remove it from her tongue, which meant she wouldn't be able to sing, she wouldn't be able to smoke, she wouldn't be able to, she loved to drink, she was naughty, she was like loved to drink and smoke and kiss and food, and all of those things were taken away from her. But they did this, and in the process of it, she had whale tattoos on her wrist, and they removed the whales off her wrist, off her left wrist, because they needed to take the vein from her left her left forearm to to replace it in her tongue to do like this skin graft or this, I don't even know how they do it. But I said, why did they have to take your whales off? Her whales were her spirit animal. I'm like, oh my God, they're taking everything from you. But I realized later that they grafted the whales onto her tongue. So she literally had tattoos of a whale on her tongue. I'm like, oh, okay, so something is taken from you, but it's like now you get to speak whale because she really could never speak again.
Oh
She
my
was a,
gosh.
but she would make sounds. I mean, she could type, she could text. That was how she communicated. But
God,
she
Kelly, I mean, crazy, right?
crazy, but like oh, like making sounds like a whale. Like and so
Wow.
so she finally passed, and it was awful and so sad and so brutal, 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 brutal. And I came back, and that's a whole other story just in the details of all that. But I come home from Northern California, and it's the day after Gypsy passed, and I'm on my porch trying to like do some journaling. I pull an oracle card out of my hero's journey deck, and it's the and oh and I say, Gypsy, I just need to know where you are. I just
Mhm.
need to know, like, give me a sign. Like you have to communicate with me. I
Right.
need to like talk to me. So I shuffle the deck, pull a random card, and the card I pull is the whale card.
Oh my gosh.
And it's a whale of a time.
She's having a whale of a time.
Yeah. And it's all about connecting with the oceanic part of ourselves, the part of us that is quite that can speak the language of the depths. That is, I mean, it was exactly the Gypsy card. And I had written that card years before, never associated that with her, but it was exactly what I needed, exactly the message that I needed. And basically the essence of it was your charge is to enlarge. Like for every difficulty, there's a mantra for every card. And it's like for every difficulty, you must become the ocean that surrounds it. Instead of being thinking of yourself as tiny, your charge is to enlarge, to become as big as the whale, to know that everything you're going through is tiny compared to your spiritual essence. And
I love
so
it. That's
that,
beautiful.
yeah, there's been
What a
so many
great way to
more.
end this show today. Thank you,
Yeah.
Kelly. You guys, the
Thank you,
book.
Nancy.
Yeah, she cried on this one. I'm so sorry.
My God.
I felt like we should talk about this. You guys, it's Kelly Sullivan Walden. The book is A Crisis is a Terrible Thing to Waste. It's really phenomenal. You guys got to pick this one up. Kelly, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Nancy. Thanks for letting me be on the high road to humanity with you. And thank you for having the ears to hear and the heart to be able to behold these stories and see
Yes.
them in a sacred way. Thank you
I
so
do.
much.
I do. God bless. All right, you guys, we're going to get out of here for today. Hey, I'm doing a series. I'm teaching people how to use their psychic abilities. So check it out on YouTube. And you can go to my website also to find it, nancyyearout.com. Today, Kelly Sullivan Walden and Nancy Yearout wish you a wonderful week. And thanks for joining us, and God bless.